We're ready for the start. They're off.
Hey there again, everybody. Welcome into It's Official, the weekly banner show where nothing's official until Jeff Siegel or I say so. Jeremy Plonk with First Bet and Express Bet, joined by the aforementioned Jeff Siegel. Jeff, I'm feeling good today. I clicked Pandora on my phone for a little music. The first song that came up, The Gambler. So I can't have a bad day today.
No, that's actually a good sign. I mean, that guarantees profits, even on a Tuesday. I don't know where you'll find it, but I'm sure you will. But there's profits to be made this week for sure. We've got the great Saturday program at Saratoga, outstanding racing at Del Mar. I'm sure we'll find some other races in between somewhere to bet on. So it looks good. But a championship will be decided on, I think, this Saturday in the Travers in the 3-year-old division. We saw one decided last Saturday at Saratoga in the Philly division. We'll talk about that in a bit.
All right.
But it's a good time of the year with college football. Actually, the first game kicks off Saturday. Can you believe that? That's going to be fun. Week 0, I think they call it, and then the big season starts the following week. So it's for you and me. This is the greatest time of the year.
I love college football. I love horse racing, but I will never call a horse racing week 0. That is a bad sign in your wagering account. So we don't want any week 0s in horse racing. We'll save those for college football. I'm already watching some hype videos, watched some OU stuff on the Roku last night. So I'm ready to go for college football, and I'm ready to go for a great week on Travers week. We got our Travers wager guide. You can download that. Go to first.news.com and check on the link for the Travers wager guide. Download that. Going to be updated after the draw. Of course, we tape It's Official here that you're watching now every Tuesday afternoon. Draw for the Travers coming up in a few hours Tuesday night in Saratoga Springs. So we will get that guide updated Wednesday, Thursday. You're going to see all the full content in there. Be sure to go and download and check out. You don't have to download anymore. In fact, you just surf the wager guide digitally online on any device, on phone, on tablet, on computer. Looks great. And always hats off to the group at First Technologies and the people who put that together. Did a really nice job with it. We're going to put together 5 topics as we do each week on the big board. And let's get started as we look back at last week's edition of Girl Power, East Coast edition. Well, Jeff already said the 3-year-old filly title was probably clinched at Saratoga on Saturday. She flew the nest, folks.
It is Nest who has taken over the lead now. Secret Oath now moves into second. She's Keen has dropped out of it. Gerrymander is next. Goddess of Fire's on the extreme outside. And the field is in the stretch. And it is Nest who has asked for more. And she is responding here. Nest has a 4-length lead. Secret Oath in second. Here is Nest. And she is pouring it on here in the stretch. She is at the top of her class. Nest wins the Alabama by 5 lengths. Secret Oath was second. Goddess of Fire finished third. Nest and Rod Ortiz Jr.
Jeff, a lot of times you hear some cheesy audio piped in on a simulcast feed, like applause, or it just sounds like a laugh track on a comedy show sometimes. That was legit applause down the lane from the fans at Saratoga. They erupted when she put away a Secret Oath and just drew off. It was kind of a coronation over the last 1/8 of a mile and a appreciation tour from the crowd there at Saratoga. That was really fun to see and very impressive.
It was. I had mentioned last week that I had watched her previous work, and she didn't look all that sharp, or at least as sharp as she did when she won the CCA Oaks before that. Well, I'm getting to learn a little bit more about Nest now, and that is, I think she's smart enough now to realize the difference between the afternoon and the morning. And she was as spectacular in this race as she was, I thought, in the CCA Oaks. The margin of victory wasn't the same, but she did it with a similar type of authority. And this time, I thought Secret Oath, who is a very, very good filly, don't anybody let the kid get you on that. I thought Secret Oath got the proper ride. She ran as well as she could run, and still no match for Nest. And I think that's more a tip of the cap to Nest than anything else, because she's making an exceptional filly look ordinary. And Nest winning again. She's now won 6 out of 9 of her last 2. Again, I'm gonna say this again, she may have been able to win the Belmont with a better start, or at least make it close. And so her form not only is outstanding, but it's getting better by the race, as you would expect a daughter of Curlin to get. And now I think what they have to do, Jeremy, is to figure out, okay, we've got the Eclipse Award in the back pocket. So now what do we do to maximize not only this year, but then maybe plan ahead to a 4-year-old season?
Right.
Because the way she's running and the distance that she's going to be able to handle, I wouldn't put anything past her next year as she develops and matures into a 4-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, you get a race like the Pegasus World Cup for a lot of money in late January. So if you kind of just train up to the Breeders' Cup now, which I think is what they're going to do, I don't see her running again before the Breeders' Cup. And if they're going to bring her back at 4, I mean, that could be a really lucrative type spot. We'll see what's left in the handicap division by the time we get to January 2023, looking way ahead here. But when you have a filly like this, you have to look ahead and see what could potentially be next. I think for Ness, the Breeders' Cup is next. I see no reason to run her in the Spinster, and she doesn't need a race over the track at Keeneland. She won the Ashland there in the spring, so check that box off. We know she can get the 1 1/8 of the Distaff. We know she can get the 1 1/4 of the Classic. The question really becomes, we run on Breeders' Cup Day. Any chance we see her in the Classic, or is this a straight Distaff play?
I would think that based on what I'm expecting to see in the Classic, that they would take the conservative route and run her and win a Breeders' Cup race. And then next year, you talk about the Pegasus, but what about Saudi Arabia? What about Dubai? I mean, those are, races that she can, at that stage of her career, she may be able to win without even trying all that hard based on the projected improvement that she's going to get with the maturity and the pedigree and all that. So I think they'll play conservative this year, and then next year they'll step out and give her a chance to make a lot of money, which she certainly would be capable of doing.
Yeah, and if you've got Life is Good and Flightline in the Classic and any of the 3-year-old males that we're talking about, a really difficult task. And also, too, Todd Pletcher trains Life is Good. And if he's in the Classic, he'll want to obviously, talk to his owners and try to assess their best chances in all divisions. So we expect that we'll see the Distaff next for Nest, and probably no preps in between. She's run hard, Jeff. I look back at her running lines since September 25th last year when she debuted. There's some 2-month breaks in there, but those aren't breaks in training. Those are works and just staying at the track and staying fit in between. She really has not had a break at any point. So a little bit of rest into the Breeders' Cup Distaff probably wouldn't hurt, and let some of those horses like Latruska and others kind of bang each other up a little bit. And Clary Hare, we're going to see them this weekend running into Personal Ensign at Saratoga. Let them bang each other up a little bit, and she can come in there fresh. That Saratoga to Breeders' Cup layoff is really nothing anymore. We see it being done successfully.
Well, you know what they say in the NFL, the best ability is availability.
Right?
And she has been available every step of the way. As you say, she hasn't missed training since last summer of her 2-year-old season. So they'll give her a break here, have a fresh force for the Breeders' Cup, give her another break, and then try to kill the world as a 4-year-old, which I think she will.
Girl power. Nest has got it. We'll see what she can do with it. Topic 2 on the board this week. Girl power again. I don't know if we get strikes for creativity here or non-creativity, but north of the border, it was a tour de force in the Queen's Plate for the filly named Moira.
As they come down to the final quarter in the Queen's Plate, the Minxter, Ironstone, and here comes the filly, Moira, and she's exploding down the outside, and in the blink of an eye has raced to the front, and it's Moira. Out in a lead 2 lengths, racing home is Hall of Dreams down the outside. But the mighty filly has devastated them. And the 163rd Queen's Plate is a big win for Moira. She is stunning, wins 6 lengths.
Jeff, when the jockey's on his 4th fist pump when they cross under the wire, you won comfortably. It was a no doubt about it performance for Moira. And we've seen some fillies do great things in the Queen's Plate in recent years. Mark Cassie's had a couple. Lexi Liu, Wonder Godot. They had various resumes compared to what we see with Moira. Moira has run only on the Tapeta at Woodbine, so she's going to have to answer the question on different surfaces if she's going to contend in the open 3-year-old filly division. But she is awfully, awfully good. And compared to some of those others, I mean, she's better at this stage, I think, than Lexi Liu was. And Lexi Liu went on to run a good second in the Hollywood Derby against the boys later that same season.
Well, I don't know if anybody takes this seriously, but I'll throw it out just for comparison purposes. Nest earned a 99 buyer number when she won the Alabama on the same day. And then Moira, the next day, she earned a 97 buyer. So there's not that much difference
Right.
on paper. I mean, Nest is clearly beating better horses, but Moira is a kind of a victim of her, her birth country. She's been running at Woodbine because she's a Canadian bred.
Right.
But it's not to say she couldn't have gone somewhere and won other good races.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that she shouldn't be able to be just as good on dirt. She is by Ghost Sapper out of a mare by Unbridled Song. She is just where she is because that's where she should be. And winning of her last 2 races by a combined 17 3/4 lengths. Her buyer number, as I mentioned, a career top 97.
Yep.
It could have been 5 points more, but they deducted 5 points for taunting. You see, that was a 5-point penalty that the jock got.
Yeah.
But 97 buyer, before that 92, before that 74, before that 74, before that 71. So she's getting, just like Nest, she's getting better and faster with every race. And the way she won that race, she is ready to take on much better competition. But let me ask you this. I mean, there are races down here in the States that she can win for 3-year-old fillies. I'm thinking about race like the Cotillion, a few others. But is that more important than trying to win the Canadian Triple Crown? I ask you, how prestigious is winning a Canadian Triple Crown? Not too many people can name the last one. I think it was Wando, or if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, is that a big deal or a great accomplishment, or should they try to win a grade 1 down here?
Well, Kevin Attard's the trainer, and his family's many generations of, Canadian horsemen. I mean, you look in the program and Attard, you get a lot of that family. So it's a big deal to them. And, they've gotten to go over 3 surfaces in the Canadian Triple Crown. The Prince of Wales, the race at Fort Erie, next up is on the dirt. And then they would come back to run 1.5 miles on the turf in the Breeders' Stakes at Woodbine to wrap up that Triple Crown. So it's 2 surfaces she's never been on. So the prestige is there to try to maybe go for it, and the family ties to the Woodbine racing history. But the fact, do you know that she can take on these other surfaces? But she comes to the U.S. and runs in a big race, she's going to switch surfaces too. So I don't think she's like Dance Smartly, like come and win the Breeders' Cup Distaff right now. But I think this is a very serious filly. I think she's, by Ghost Sapper out of an Unbridled Song mare. Divine Aida, her dam, did win an off-the-turf graded stakes at Gulfstream Park during her 3-year-old year. Then she didn't handle the big races for the 3-year-olds, the dam, on dirt. She ended up becoming more of a turf horse. But, you get that Ghost Sapper, and that's a very versatile pedigree. And you know that you can be fast, you can get some distance, you can get dirt. There are options for her moving forward. I don't think they come quickly, though. I don't see them coming to the U.S. to take on the Spinster and try to get to the Breeders' Cup. Right. I think they'll stay the Triple Crown Trail in Canada, but we'll have to keep our eyes out for it. But, I think Moira's pretty good. I mean, Wonder Godot kind of, comes to mind as a good 2-year-old or a 3-year-old filly who won the Queen's Plate and was very good in the U.S. Wonder Godot was, on that Triple Crown Trail for the fillies, for the Oaks Trail, Fairgrounds Oaks, those races, and was very competitive before she went to the Queen's Plate. So while Wonder Godot is more of a first half of the year horse, remember, she ended up running what? Wonder Godot was second in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. She ran a big race in one of her appearances. So these horses can be competitive, but this is a good crop of distaff horses, very good crop of 3-year-old fillies in the U.S. If there was a year where you wanted to cross the border and come challenge them, this probably isn't the one, right?
Well, I think so. It's just a matter of if you're Canadian and you think that winning the Canadian Triple Crown is important to you, then, and it probably would be to me if I were Canadian, then maybe that's where you stay. You can beat the boys. I don't think there's anything on the horizon that can beat her. Now, maybe up there, maybe she can beat herself by not reproducing her best form on dirt or on grass, but she doesn't have to worry about anybody, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. And if they want to come to the U.S., maybe to the turf, the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup at Keeneland, late October, that's a turf race. If you want to kind of make that grade 1 move, that wouldn't be out of the question.
I'm not sure I'd want to try that, though. And we'll find out in about 30 seconds.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a bit. Hey, want to have a little fun with Moira, though. Of course, fans of the comedic series Schitt's Creek know that Moira Rose was the namesake for this Canadian-bred filly, the eccentric character played by Catherine O'Hara. So Moira winning the Canadian version of the Triple Crown got me thinking, about the famous names of horses who have won our big races here stateside. And you don't have to go very far on the Kentucky Derby Trail, Jeff Siegel, to find horses Nyquist and 2016, won the Kentucky Derby, named for Gustav Nyquist, the hockey player you see there. And then you see that handsome man Sting and the young man next to him. Well, that's Giacomo Sumner. That's Sting's son. And, of course, the horse Giacomo, the 2005 Kentucky Derby winner, named by A&M Records founder Jerry Moss, a friend of Sting, a lifelong friend. He named Giacomo after his son. And, of course, he went on to win a Derby in 2005. But, Jeff, I got a little trivia for you. This is the ultimate flex in horses named after people, okay?
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to name this horse. And if you can't name this horse, I'll ask you to name the rider, the trainer who's on him.
Well, it doesn't look like it. That picture was taken yesterday. I can tell you that.
No.
It's got to be back a ways.
Well, at some point it was taken yesterday, but not today.
Well, yeah, but yesterday, maybe 100 years ago. I don't know. I mean, I don't think Trigger ever won the Derby, so I can't use that one. I have no idea. I hope that's the name of the horse. I have no idea.
That is 1929 Kentucky Derby winner Clyde Van Dusen with his trainer Clyde Van Dusen aboard. The ultimate name flex. I mean, we'll go back to him. Clyde Van Dusen was a 1929 Kentucky Derby winner. For a lot of years, he was the trivia question of the last gelding to win until Funnyside won. Clyde Van Dusen was named in honor of his trainer, Clyde Van Dusen. Where you see this horse in photo then is in his retirement. After the horse was retired, Clyde Van Dusen, the trainer, bought the horse off the owner and used him as a stable pony. So there he was, riding his namesake, who won the Kentucky Derby for him as a trainer. I mean, Moira, named for Moira Rose, is nice, but there is no bigger name flex in the history of big races than Clyde Van Dusen.
Okay, you got me there. I wasn't born quite yet, so I missed that one. But
when you said 100 years ago, you weren't that far.
Well, I mean,
off.
it looks like it anyway.
95, 96 years ago.
Right. Okay.
Back to the big board we go, and our creativity is unmatched this week. The girl power went to the east, the north, and now we're going west because Jeff hinted at a filly 3-year-old on the turf who was awfully impressive in the Del Mar Oaks. Let's go to Trevor Dedman.
3/8 to go in the Del Mar Oaks, and Cairo Memories kicks for home, but Spanderella immediately hooks out and comes to take her on. And Spanderella in the white cap now taking on Cairo Memories, top of the lane in the Oaks. These two come for home together. Bella Bella's trying to get involved from third. Homeward bound, and Spanderella just sweeps on by and opens up on them. And it's Spanderella striding away. 4, 5, 6 could not have been more impressive. Spanderella turns it into a procession. Finishing second was Bellabelle. Third was Cairo Memories. Very close then for fourth.
So from Nest in the east to Moira in the north to Spanderella in the west. Jeff Siegel, how impressed were you with this 3-year-old filly on the grass? I kind of got like the flutters for her at Keeneland in the spring when she won the Appalachian. Like, this filly, I think I really like her a lot. She's quickly becoming one of my favorites, so I'm biased. What do you think?
Well, like I mentioned, Moira, you mentioned maybe running her at Keeneland in the QE2, but after watching Spanderella, who's going to go there next?
She's 3 to 5 in that race.
I'd say Moira, stay in Toronto at least for now, because Spanderella is unbelievably good. Of course, she's won 4 out of her 5. The 1 second finish, she was second in the coronation of Royal Ascot, beat almost 5 lengths by Inspiral, who recently last week won a Group 1 in France, and so that makes not that she needs Spanderella to make her look good, but Spanderella's only defeat is against a horse that may be the best 3-year-old filly in all of Europe. And by the way, Inspiral will not be coming to the Breeders' Cup this year. That's the bad news. The good news is she will be kept in training and will, according to plan, be sent over to California for the Breeders' Cup next year. I know it's a long way away, but at least that's the initial long-range term plans for Inspiral, who clearly is incredible to have beaten that filly by 5 lengths at Royal Ascot. But Spanderella came here, and I thought maybe she might be vulnerable because of the long trips and all that, and the outside
11 hole.
Everything that seemed to go against her, and she just scoffed that off. She brushed that off like water off her back. Had good tactical speed, got over, got a great trip, kicked away. I think Bella Belle, who I think is a pretty good filly. I mean, she ran second, but she was made to look ordinary behind Spanderella. And here's the thing. Now, we talked about this a few weeks ago, and I want to bring it up real quick, Jeremy, because it's something that bothers me. Spenderella's Buyer numbers have been 90, 90, and then the Royal Ascot race, and then in this race she earned a 91. Come on, I mean, I think she's improved a little bit. That's just me, And then yet the number is just stuck on that 90 because that's what you did. So I guess that's all she's ever going to do the rest of her life.
It's kind of like Dick Vitale. He always has his bald dome index. He always says, don't tell me about the rankings. Don't tell me about the Sagarin ratings.
Right.
My bald dome tells me that this team is for real.
Right. Exactly.
Our bald domes tell us that we think Spinderella is legit. And yeah, I agree. I think she's going to end up in the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup. It's October 15th, $600,000 a mile and an eighth at Keeneland. It makes a ton of sense. We have seen horses come from the QE2 and wheel back quickly in the Breeders' Cup in a couple of weeks. I don't think these connections are into that sort of move like that. So I don't think you're looking at a Breeders' Cup campaign.
No.
I think you're looking at finish up the 3-year-old filly campaign with another stateside win, get that grade 1 on the resume again in the QE2, and then look at the 4-year-old season next year. She reminds me of Mean Mary a little bit in her running style, but Mean Mary was a late developer and more of a 1.5 mile type horse for Graham Motion.
Right.
And I was trying to come up with a comparable to her, and she's a lot like Tepin, but she's a faster developer than Tepin. Tepin was 0 for 4 as a 3-year-old and didn't get good until her 4-year-old season. But she's got that international mojo where she went overseas. And, of course, Tepin got the victory overseas. But their running style, their quality, trainers Cassie and Motion kind of remind me of each other in terms of their levels of success and the kind of horses they have success with. I see a lot of Tepin in Spenderella, and let's just hope she has a career similar as good as Tepin, because that would be a fantastic resume to put together.
Well, and she handles firm ground. She handles good ground. She can go to the front. She can stalk, bounce, and go. Very versatile, and should be a really good 4-year-old. And being by Breeders' Cup Mile winner in Caracante, she's got the right to be this good, and just a really, really top-class filly who I think will finish off the year with a win at Keeneland, and then maybe, who knows, maybe they'll send her overseas too. So we'll see. But Spenderella to me is a deserving top class, potential champion in her division, and we shall see if she can finish out the year on a winning note, and I suspect she will.
She won the big 3-year-old filly race at Gulfstream. She did it at Keeneland in the spring, and now she's done it at Del Mar. Somewhere out there on the interweb, Jeff, there's some jackass who's going to say, she hasn't done it in New York.
Yeah.
Until you've done it in New York, you haven't done anything. So, like, Spenderella wouldn't have went and won the Lake George by like 6 or something like that, if they had chose to run there versus the Del Mar Oaks. So rest easy, New Yorkers. Maybe someday you'll get to see Spenderella and she'll prove it to you that she's good anywhere. But she's awfully good, and we don't need a figure or a New Yorker to tell us so.
Right.
She can flat out run.
Exactly.
Let's go to topic 4 this week on It's Official. This is typically our last topic of the week. We're moving it up in the format, if you will, because we want to talk Travers at the end of the show. Our stars of tomorrow. Each week we take a look at 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds in the maiden ranks who are rising up and horses you want to circle for the future. We've got 4 of them this week, so let's get to the big library of them, starting with Classical Cat, who was running at Del Mar over the weekend. Classical Cat for trainer Phil D'Amato.
They're at the top of the lane, Storm the Night down at the rail, but now giving way to Classical Cat. Hijazi in the red cap sent after them on the outside. Past the 8th pole they come. Classical Cat the leader. Hijazi fully extended, chasing him gamely from second. Eastbound running on third, but it's Classical Cat too good, and Classical Cat wins it determinedly. Hijazi was second, Eastbound third, Photo for fourth, Omnipresent and Storm the Night.
Let the gallop out show there, because Classical Cat was never in danger and galloped out well. Jeff, our first of 4 stars of tomorrow, your take on this one, Classical Cat.
From the first crop of Mendelssohn, who is starting to heat up. It's had a very good month. Mendelssohn, first crop stallion by Scat Daddy. And Classical Cat had the benefit of an outside draw, 8 out of 8, and he popped the gate, got a great trip. Good stalking trip, came away and won nicely. The colt that ran second in the meantime, Hijazi, that's the colt that cost $3.3 million or something, and he got all banged up and bottled up between horses, took back, rallied wide, finished well. There's nothing wrong with that colt. This winner's Classical Cat got a 71 buyer. That's a joke as far as I'm concerned. It's way better than that, and I think this is going to prove to be an extremely productive race. Classical Cat, I think, will definitely win a stakes. Ajazi, I mean, he might be a Breeders' Cup horse, and even the horse that rallied to be third a million miles back, Eastbound, should be followed. That race, again, is much better than the number will show, and I think in due time you'll see 2, if not 3, really good colts behind him, behind the winner, go out and do something well. But the winner's ran by Phil D'Amato. I guess Graff should be in his future, and why not? He's by Mendelssohn. But if you can run that well on dirt, as a 2-year-old, there's a lot of money for 2-year-olds on the dirt, so I'm sure Phil will find a right spot for him. Maybe we'll see him next in the American Pharoah at San Anita Fall, and we'll see if he can duplicate that around 2 turns.
From Classical Cat to Kangaroo Court, we keep the animal theme going at Del Mar with our Stars of Tomorrow.
Top of the lane now, and Kangaroo Court has gone well clear. Leads it by 5-6 to Tom Horn. Homeward bound now, and it's Kangaroo Court looking for a danger, but there simply isn't one. Kangaroo Court is clear by 10. They would need to sprout wings to get to Kangaroo Court and Abel Cedillo. They've won at a distance. Close for second. Thirsty Pappy gets it. Tom Horn was third, and Duty First finished fourth.
And again, wanted to hold the gallop out there to just show you how far Kangaroo Court galloped out in front. And Jeff, anytime I get Trevor sprouting wings in a call, I'll take it. I mean, that was the quintessential they'd need to sprout wings. You talked about Hijazi earlier, the $3.3 million purchase. This one, I believe, was $7,500 at the last time it was sold publicly at auction. So you can win with all kinds. It helps to have the best stock, but this stock was okay too.
But you had to go to Arizona to find this horse. The Arizona sale in November, which I don't even know what that is. But anyway, $7,500. And by I believe he was a New York sprinter named Dad's Cap.
Yeah, he was.
This is a 2-year-old gelding. And I saw Timmy Akin the day after the races. I said, you won by 14. You ran faster than that $3.3 million thing of Baffert's an hour before the same day. He thinks this horse might win the Breeders' Cup. So I assume you're going to go to the Breeders' Cup with Kangaroo Court. And he said, no, there's a Calbred race here. They're called the I'm Smoking that I'm looking at.
I'm smoking. All right.
So, but he actually had run really well in his debut behind the Big Wham. It was a really nice colt and kind of tipped his hand there. And then Kangaroo Court comes back and wins this race. But again, the 81 buyer number to me is at least 6, 7, 8 points too short. So don't worry about that. He'll come back. There's not a Calvert out there that can warm him up. And eventually, he'll have to, step out of his division. But I remember the same thing was said about California Chrome when he was beating Calbreds. Oh, he's only beating Calbreds. But he's a better horse than that. I'm telling you, and I think Kangaroo Court is the kind of horse that's going to prove that he's better too. He's out of a hard spun mare, which means he should go a mile. He even should try Graff if he wants to be. But I think that Tim will do what's right by him. And Kangaroo Court, I don't know how good he is, but he's going to win an awful lot of races because there's not a state-bred horse around that can touch him.
It would be very ironic if Yakteen, the summer after getting all the Baffert transfers to his barn and all that elite bloodstock, would get the horse of his lifetime for a $7,500 Arizona sale in a Calbred and Kangaroo Court. We shall see. We've talked about a 2-year-old colt already in Classical Cat, a 2-year-old gelding in Kangaroo Court. Now we've got a 2-year-old filly named Home Cooking. She might be the worst named horse ever for Mike Pigram because he's going to turn for home in those McDonald's silks, the red and yellow. Keep an eye out for Home Cooking.
Top of the lane now. She's in the army now, but here comes Home Cooking with a big run. Home Cooking gets the lead as she turns for home and strides away from them now. And it's Home Cooking opening up 5, 6, 7. You can pick your own number now. It doesn't matter. It's just a matter of how far. Home Cooking absolutely breezing in. Electric Glide and Monique got second. Electric Guide third. Broadway Girls finished fourth.
This is one who didn't gallop out with quite as much gusto as we've seen with some of the others. Jeff kind of passed the wire and was shutting things down a bit. Maybe won't go long, but by Honor Code, this is a horse who's probably 7 furlongs to a mile, could be probably really effective at some point in time. What's your make on the 2-year-old filly Honor Home Cooking? This one is a Bob Baffert training.
Well, the first time she ran 21-2 to the quarter, head and head, and got tired. This time, Bob took the blinkers off and told Mike Smith, take her back and make one run. We'll see if this works. And so this time, she's 5th of 10 down the backstretch instead of being on the lead. And then you can see what she did. She ended up drawing away by 9. I don't know whether she's a mile and an eighth horse or anything like that, but she could be a really good one-turn type horse, and we'll see how good she can. But I love the fact that she was able to adjust her strategy and be so happy about it. Sometimes what you want the horse to do and what they want to do, 2 different things. But she was very receptive to the switch in strategy. And here's another thing: she got a 76 Bayern number, winning by 9, which means all these other horses are getting numbers in the 40s and 50s, and I know they're better than that. And what I think might happen is I think these 5.5 furlong speed figures for the Bayern numbers are like out of kilter because they're all way too slow. So again, keep that in your mind, because I think these numbers that these 5.5 furlong races are producing aren't really accurate. So anyway, Home Cooking, I think, is going to be just fine. And it's just, I don't know how top class she's going to be, but she's absolutely going to win a stakes or 2 down the road.
We've got another of our stars of tomorrow to look at. We've seen 3 from Del Mar. The big one at Saratoga was not a secret. The word was out on this one, and he ran to it. His name, Echo Again, a big winner over the weekend for Steve Asmussen.
Echo Again in front here, in front by 2. With Summon Your Courage giving chase. And now Echo Again quickly opens up here by 5. Now by 6 lengths. Echo Again, very impressive in his debut. Echo Again, a 2-year-old son of Gunrunner, completed the 6.5 furlongs in 1 minute, 15 4/5 seconds. There's a 2-year-old to follow.
Well, that's why we call him Stars of Tomorrow, John Embrial. He set us up with that and teed us up, Jeff Siegel. Your thoughts on this very impressive win by Echo Again? This is kind of the 2-year-old everybody's been waiting for at Saratoga, I think.
Yeah, we had tape on him in his workout. So if you watched it, he's one of these horses that wasn't going fast, but there was so much there. And you don't really know for sure how good or how fast they're going to be until they let him run a little bit. But this time, when he popped the gate, Echo Again, to me, was the winner after the first quarter of a mile. And because of that, it was just a matter of what he was going to do from the quarter pull home. And he ended up winning by almost 7 lengths. He was spectacular in victory. And what I think is what important here is he went 6.5 furlongs. And that's more than 6, obviously, which gives you an idea that he's not some fast sprinter who's going to be life and death to get an extra 1/16 of a mile. He drew off and won. The number was very, very strong. He did it with a ton left in the tank. Steve Asmussen, by the way, he's my gun runner. I thought maybe that might drop that in there too. But Steve was talking about how his brother thought this was one of the best horses he's ever broken, and he sure ran like it. And forget about the hopeful. They'll pass that up, and they'll probably wait for something like the Champagne, I would think, and then the Breeders' Cup. But right now, based on the 94 buyer number that he earned, based on his pedigree, based on the way he won, based on how much he had in reserve, I'd be hard pressed to find a better 2-year-old in the country right now than Echo Again.
If they want to go to the Champagne, they can stay around 1 turn before stretching out in the Breeders' Cup. If they want to get the 2-turn experience and race over the track at Keeneland, the Breeders' Futurity then makes a lot of sense. Steve Asmussen not only trained the sire gun runner, as you all know, he trained the dam of this colt and the Grand Dam. So he's trained 3 generations now of this horse, the dam, and the Grand Dam, and he trained gun runners. So he will know every idiosyncrasy possible with this colt moving forward, and they were very high on him, and for very good reason. We go back to the board for our 5th and final topic this week. Championship Saturday looms. Time now, Jeff Siegel, for our Travers Stakes preview. Of course, you can download the wager guide at first.news.com, and you can go to the wager guide section there and check out the Travers Stakes wager guide from First Bet and Express Bet. All the handicappers, all the artificial intelligence, the XBTV workouts, stats and trends, everything you want to handicap the Travers. We're going to look ahead here on It's Official to the Travers Stakes coming up Saturday at Saratoga. $25,000 in money back specials and in hit and splits, I should say, over the course of the Saturday card at Saratoga when you bet with First Bet and Express Bet. So a lot of incentives to get involved. Again, $25,000 in hit and splits. Look at those pick fours. Look at those fives. Jeff's partners are already calling him right now to get in on those hit and splits. They want to put tickets together.
One of them.
That's one of them, all right. So, Jeff, let's talk Travers Stakes here. The big picture, we know the top three finishers from the Kentucky Derby expected in the starting gate. Rich Strike, you've got Epicenter, you've got Zandon. You throw in the Preakness winner, that gives you a big four. Then you throw in the only two-time Grade 1 winner in this crop right now, which is CyberKnife, who won the Arkansas Derby and the Haskell. You've got a big five. This is a very, very good edition of the Travers Stakes.
And it's good because it's competitive. It's not like it's good because we got one great horse and a bunch of horses that are going to make them look good. I mean, as a gambler, you can look at a number of these horses and say, I like him because of this, or I like him. And it's a horse race. It's a real throwback to some of the races we enjoy racing, where you see 5 or 6 contenders and you can see a gamble on any one of 5 or 6 and feel confident at least you're going to get a run for your money.
Let's go back and watch Epicenter in a little bit of training this past week, a week or so ago, with Clairiere, who's going to run in the Personal Ensign. She may be the leader in the Breeders' Cup Distaff division amongst the older horses. Epicenter working in company. We'll talk a little bit about Epicenter as the fans get a chance to watch this workout. The work not so much as important as the horse himself, Jeff. Your take on Epicenter as he's been dancing all these dances and never misfires.
Well, not only is that true, but this was a good work. And I think that it's after having a series of hard races and being in training really, again, without a break since last year as a 2-year-old, you're looking for some kind of drop-off maybe. Maybe he's not as sharp as he used to be. Maybe he's not quite as strong or in the same kind of form. I don't know, Jeremy. He looks pretty good to me, especially when you consider who he's working with.
Right. They both look good in this work. And, Steve Asmussen's horses not known to flash huge times on the clock in the morning. So it is about visuals and watching them and how they're doing it. And as you had mentioned with Echo again, the first time started, you could see the talent before that horse made its debut last week without just looking at 47s for a half mile on the clock. Certainly what we see from Epicenter here sets him up well for the Travers. You talk about horses, how they're coming in and out of races. Let's switch now to look at early voting, working in company here with the Chad Brown stablemate. Early voting, of course, the winner of the Preakness Stakes, second jewel of the Triple Crown this year. And he's a horse who took a step back, quite honestly, Jeff, in the Jim Dandy. He got the lead that day. He wasn't under heavy pressure, and he still gave way. Now, you might have wanted to take a big stand against early voting coming back in the Travers at a 1/8 of a mile longer from the Jim Dandy. And when you had Charge It in the race, you thought that those two could really lock up and get after it. But with Charge It's foot abscess forcing him to scratch out of the Travers Stakes before entries were taken, could we see early voting loose on the lead again? And is this work good enough to propel him from that disappointing Jim Dandy?
Well, I think that's the only way he can win. But the good news for early voting is that he may have a little bit less respect this time because of the fact that he was beaten last time. So he might be able to get a little looser on the lead than he was before. Mm-hmm. This works okay, but they only go 49-3. I mean, he went fine, but when you're going 49-3, you're supposed to look fine, right?
Right.
So I don't think it really means anything. But I think early voting has a chance to be a little fitter than maybe that he was in his last race. That will help. And the fact that I don't think anybody's going to worry too much about him, that'll help. So I think he'll run better. But whether or not he's good enough to beat this group going 1.25 miles, even if he gets that uncontested front running trip, as he probably needs, although in the Preakness he did sit second. I don't know. I'm kind of off him a little bit. I think I got him at the right time when we liked him. We both liked him at 5-1 in the Preakness. Neither one of us liked him in the Jim Dandy, and he ran accordingly. So I'm probably going to assume that he's going to be where he wants to be, but I'm also going to be assuming that there will be horses that will be right behind him that can outkick him, especially going 1.25 miles.
Well, the horse who got the most kick of all on Kentucky Derby Day was Rich Strike, and this is a horse who did not come back in the Belmont Stakes to replicate that effort. Different circumstances here as he comes off the longer layoff, Jeff. Here he is coming down the lane in what is a pretty zippy workout for him at Saratoga a couple days ago.
He's a good workhorse when he wants to be, and he's being niggled at just a little bit, but that's fine. I mean, you want him to finish up in 59 and change, and this is a good solid work. This would lead me to believe that he's ready to run as well as he can run. The question is, Jeremy, is he a one-hit wonder? I mean, you cannot take the Kentucky Derby away from him. No. I mean, I know he had a fast pace and all that, but he flew home, and I'll forgive him for the mile and a half. His style isn't conducive to that. I don't know. But if he can run back at a mile and a quarter to his Derby win, if you just took that at face value and the way he's working here, which is absolutely nothing wrong with this work at all. It's a good work. I mean, the only thing about him is can he win from off the pace in a race that may not have a lot of pace?
Yeah, there's not going to be a lot of pace in here. That's the question. I'll stand by the fact that something wasn't right with him after the Kentucky Derby. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's why they skipped the Preakness. Yeah. I mean, to me, then he did not run well in the Belmont, and we haven't seen him since. So there was something that took some time. We heard about the chiropractic stuff and that. There was something that took some time to get this horse right, and they knew it was going to take some time. That's why we haven't seen him since June. If they've got him right now and he's back to what he did in the Kentucky Derby, he could surprise some people. The last horse to win the Kentucky Derby and the Travers, 2007 Street Sense, also with that big style. Street Sense, no one-hit wonder, but a lot of people thought he was just the Churchill wonder. But you forget that he won the Travers Stakes. He wasn't just completely a Churchill Downs phenom like that his form suggested. So it's not out of the question that he bounces back here and runs a big race in the Travers Stakes, but he is not going to get a proper pace setup for his style unless some other horse goes out to the front that doesn't look like it on paper. We expect the pace to be set, by early voting. Maybe CyberKnife is a horse who could show a little bit more speed. Again, we said this is a two-time Grade 1 winner of the Arkansas Derby and of the Haskell. When he won those two races, he was 2 to 3, 4 lengths off the lead. If he gets up there into the press mode, CyberKnife's a talented horse to make him run for a while, and he's not just like cheap speed. He's a legit contender for Brad Cox, the only trainer in the race looking for back-to-back wins in the Travers. He won it last year with Essential Quality. I'm not so sure this colt is as good as Essential Quality, but he's not bad, Jeff. His Kentucky Derby is the only big blemish on his resume. And you can go back all the way to like last November, December, into January. And when they interviewed Brad Cox and said, who do you have for the Derby? He said, I don't have much this year. I don't have much except CyberKnife. He knew this was his horse a long time ago, long before it took him to get all the way toward the end of the Louisiana Derby series, I believe, and into Arkansas to get into the stakes ranks. But he has always been high on this horse. So maybe CyberKnife's the X factor.
Maybe. I don't know how much of an X factor he is because I think he's a really good horse. And he's grazing well here. I mean, he's doing everything that you'd expect a good horse to do, other than that one poor run in the Derby. I'm not as big a believer in stats as you are, Jeremy, but I respect that part of the handicapping scheme. And we haven't seen a Haskell winner come back in the Travers since Point Given in 2001. So it's been a while. I don't know whether if that means anything or not. It might just be random or whatever it is. But would I be surprised if he won this race? No, I wouldn't. I'm picking against him just because I don't know. I mean, he had a hard race in that race, and I just would like to see. Put it this way: I'm going to go with a different horse because I think he's a little fresher and coming up to the race better. But if you were or anybody wants to get into debate about CyberKnife and why he should or shouldn't win the Travers, I'm going to step out because I like him as a horse. I think he's a great looking horse. But I have to figure out between now and Saturday why I'm not keen on him, and I can't put it in words yet. I don't know what the word is. Maybe it's that Haskell streak. Maybe it's something else. But it has nothing to do with how good I think the horse is. Colt's really, really good.
We'll tease everybody to check out that first and express bet Travers wager guide for Jeff's final analysis, my picks. Eddie Olczek's got the handicapping analysis for the Travers race. We've got all of our handicappers from XBTV and across the spectrum from Gulfstream and around the country. So a lot of thoughts going into that Travers wager guide and final picks. Jeff, do you want to go on the record now, or do you want to hang out for another day?
Oh, I'll tell you what. I've got a horse we haven't even mentioned. So,
well, let's bring it.
Okay, I'm going to do now. Recognizing that I know this horse has never run a race good enough to win, but that's what 6, 8, 10 to 1 shots are made of, right? Because they haven't done it yet.
Right.
I love the way Arturis is coming up to this race. He reminds me so much of Arrogate when he won the Travers. He was 9 to 1 because he had never won a race at that level. But I thought he hasn't won one, but that doesn't mean he can't win it. Arturis has only had 3 starts. Every race he's run, he's won much better. I loved his race in the Curlin. I know it's just a restricted stakes, but he's got that great stalking second flight style. He'll run forever. And oh, by the way, he is by Arrogate. So, and Chad Brown and Judmont and by the way, and I figure if Ira Ortiz gets into a stretch duel in the last 16th of a mile, and he's got 5 horses to beat on both sides, he'll wipe them all out and win. So, or find a way to do that.
You didn't go there, did you?
No, it's a joke.
I don't want a blinking number in the Travers. I don't want any numbers blinking on the board.
I agree. I'm just kidding. Actually, I'm being sarcastic for all the people who think he is a little bit too rough. If I'm betting on him, be as rough as you want to be. But anyway, Arturis, to me, has a really good chance to pull off an upset. I'm not completely committed to picking him until it shows up in the guide. But right now at the price, I'm kind of leaning towards a fresh face because I'm not completely convinced. And Jeremy, you can do all the convincing you want. Maybe you'll win me over. But I'm not really sure that the Jim Dandy was that great a race, even though Epicenter sure looked good winning it. But I don't know. We'll see.
I just like Epicenter's consistency. I know he's going to bring his race, and it might be good enough for second again. But I just trust him more than I do any of the other 3-year-olds in the rock right now.
I mean, you look at his form; he's as consistent and as genuine as you can possibly be. You're going to get Epicenter. The question I have is: are you going to get a better version of Epicenter, or are you just going to get Epicenter? I don't know.
Well, if Artorias is Arrogate, they're all running for second. So the AR part of it, he's got that down. If he
I don't think he's Arrogate, but he might be good enough to win here.
For more on the Travers Stakes, be sure to check out the blog section, expressbet.com and news.first.com for our wager guide. All right, Jeff, that wraps our 5 topics this week for It's Official. We had a reader on Twitter, Ollie Keynes. Thanks, Ollie, for the note. He messaged me this morning and said, could you and Jeff give us a forecast for the Breeders' Cup, a horse right now that we're looking for the Breeders' Cup? So our bonus topic this week, dedicated to Ollie. Thanks for watching and listening. Anybody ever has any requests they want for the show, be sure to check us out on Twitter. He's at J. Siegel Racing. I'm at Horseplayer Now. Jeff, I'm going to go a little bit crazy on my Breeders' Cup projection, so I'm going to let you go first.
All right. Well, I'd like to find a bookie or somebody that give me an over and under on the number of euros that are going to come over and win it. I think maybe 3.5 might be a good number there. But in terms of horses, I went over all the races and I didn't find anything. Now you found one. I won't steal your thunder, but you found one that'll be a huge price. But I didn't find anything that I liked at this stage that I thought was going to be a big price. I won't say all the favorites are going to win. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm trying to find horses that will be decent prices. Because if you're talking about a future book bet, you're probably looking for a price. But I know there's a lot that's going to happen between now and November. But it is hard for me to envision anybody beating Echo again as a 2-year-old, even though he's only had that one start, because my theory is that whatever he did in his maiden race, that's just scratching the surface. Now it's just a matter of staying healthy enough, to get there. And that's true with all horses, I guess. But I've seen some nice colts out there. I've seen some nice colts in California. Echo, again, to me, is extraordinary. And given his pedigree and everything else I like about him, I mean, if he doesn't go backwards and doesn't get hurt, I think he wins the Breeders' Cup Juvenile right now.
And I think if you had to pick one horse in a division who I really feel best about, it's Jackie's Warrior in the sprint. So Steve Asmussen could be sitting on 2 favorites in 2 divisions and have himself already kind of a bingo space kind of weekend where he's got a couple not to worry about quite as much, and some that you'll have to stress over. But I'm going to give one long price for Ollie and the listeners out there for a Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. He just won last weekend at FanDuel Racing in the St. Louis Derby. His name is Rattle and Roll for Kenny McPeak. I get the feeling the Dirt Mile division this year, that race typically either has a superstar fast horse in it or becomes the consolation prize for people who don't want to run in the Classic, and you get some second-tier 3-year-olds in it, that kind of Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. I think that's the kind we're leaning towards this year. I love the Rattle and Roll as a 2-year-old last year, the race he run going 2 turns at Keeneland. Kenny McPeak's not afraid to take a shot for the money. And I just get a feeling this is a horse for course at Keeneland who's coming around now to a good race. Rattle and Roll for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile is a long shot pick at this point, but it's that kind of race where it's who doesn't want to go in the Classic, who's too slow for the sprint, or who wants to avoid Jackie's Warrior. It becomes a mishmash race. I'll take a horse for a course for a good price trainer in McPeak and maybe take our shots there. But I think McPeak might still be sitting on that all-time Breeders' Cup offer after last year, right? Has he still?
Yeah, you might be right about that.
All right, we'll see you next week. That's it for the show. I'm done now. But that's the one where I'm taking a look at. I do think that Rattle and Roll's interesting horse for the fall.
Yeah.
Maybe Clark Handicap or something like that at Churchill for the fall for a horse like that. But Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile would be interesting if he can get to that point. So that's where I'm going to go. But if you said who to me is the most likely winner on Breeders' Cup Day today, I would say Jackie's Warrior in the sprint. Yeah. Come back to me after Saturday's 4 go and make sure I still have that same opinion. But I think he'll handle his business there and then move on to Keeneland as well. But I like Jackie's Warrior a lot because there is not a standout in the California division in the sprinters this year.
Ooh,
and among the 3-year-olds, it's Gunite, his stablemate, and Jack Christopher going this weekend in the Challenge Jerkins. So unless Jack Christopher looks like he's going to be a 6-furlong monster, I just don't see anybody beating Jackie's Warrior at the 6-furlong trip there at Keeneland.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think he'll put on another exhibition on Saturday. It'll be fun to watch.
Let's review our topics this week. They were really easy. Girl Power in the East. That was Nest and her dominant win in the Alabama. Girl Power north of the border with Moira. Will she take on American horses south of the border maybe next year? Let's go to Girl Power in the West, where Spendarella said there are no 3-year-old fillies in my league. She dispatched everybody into Del Mar Oaks, probably going to the QE2 at Keeneland next. Our stars of tomorrow, we featured 4 different runners. Write these down. Classical Cat for Phil D'Amato, Kangaroo Court for Tim Yakteen, Home Cooking, the filly for Bob Baffert, and Echo again, the horse Jeff just said is the most likely winner on the Breeders' Cup card in the juvenile division for Steve Asmussen. So we also took a look at the Championship Saturday, which looms next with the look at the Travers Stakes. Jeff, should be a fantastic weekend. Friday night, Charlestown Classic. We get a lot of promotions at Express Bet and First Bet for folks betting that on Friday night. Should be a fun time there. Art Collector expected to be the favorite in there as the defending champion of the Charlestown Classic. Big stakes days in New York for the New York breds on Friday leading into Saturday. So we've got a lot of great racing coming up this weekend, all culminating with the Travers.
And we'll draw today a little bit later on. We record this on Tuesday. So looking forward to that and get an extra day to handicap and be prepared for a great weekend of racing.
On behalf of everybody across First Technologies, my partner Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Enjoy the Travers, and we'll talk to you on Friday with a full handicapping podcast when we take you through the weekend stakes. Take care, everybody.